In many aspects of my life, um, if not all, I find that I bounce around from interest to interest. I tend to not stay too um, fixated on one way of looking at something for too long. Uh, and I think having lived so long as an actor has contributed to this because I was always kind of going from one project to another with, a new group of people in a new setting, with a new character and a new story. And I like that. I like that ability to change in every moment and to become new, to not be held by the past in any way. And I work this same way when it comes to spiritual practice or other creative practice. And I may fixate on something for a while, be very interested in a particular teacher or a particular practice. But then, at some point I put that aside and move on to whatever is pulling me next, or whatever I feel drawn to. And I find it helpful because, in a way, it's taught me to have, the ability to have many tools in my tool belt. And so depending on what I'm going through at a particular time, I may pull out a different meditation practice or a different, way of centering myself that feels most accessible in that particular situation. And I think for some people it makes sense to, follow very specific paths, say like Vipassana meditation or, working with chakras or yoga, whatever it may be, art, which then that can, whether you're a painter or a musician or, whatever it is that you do, that can, the more you develop those skills, that can bring you to a really deep really deep skills and understanding kind of through that process, in a way that, especially if it's lasted for a long time, like I remember going to a museum in Bruges, Belgium, and it's the largest collection of Salvador Dali paintings supposedly in the world, but apparently he also had signed many blank canvases, and so there are many forgeries out there in the world of Salvador Dali. But walking through that space, you kind of saw all of these kind of ideas or genres that he was kind of obsessed with at a particular time, and the way that it moved from one to another. He would recreate very similar images over and over and over again, maybe in some sense trying to perfect it, or something that he was trying to express, something he was trying to understand. I don't know. but it was just this kind of this repetition of repeating the same idea over and over again until he was ready to move on. And so even though it was done through one medium, it's kind of a similar idea of like these, whatever it is we get focused on or obsessed with for a particular time until we're kind of done with that and move on. And I've thought of myself kind of, rather than an artist of a specific medium, more that I am the art itself, that there's something that through exploring whatever it is I'm interested in at the time is helping me to expand in the way that I need. That is all kind of like putting together these pieces of deepening my connection to self and the world around me in very unique ways, kind of blending up all of the information and experiences and then finding my own way through to expressing those things. But I think it's helpful in recognizing that we go through these chapters or these stages in our lives, but even more so that we are changing into a completely new person, a totally new person in every single second. And Bashar, who I've talked about on a past video, he's the current kind of teacher that I've been absorbing a lot of information from. But he says that we are shifting to new realities billions of times a second. So in every single kind of frame of reality, if you think of it as like a film strip, every single frame is an entirely different reality unto itself. And the more we are kind of conscious of that, the more that we can kind of actively choose how we're moving forward and how we are behaving, rather than getting lost in old patterns or habits or ways of thinking. And so kind of in addition to that, I've been practicing these ways of kind of breaking away from like the addiction of certain emotional states. Whether, I think sometimes we can get kind of addicted to our anger or righteousness or whatever it may be, certain thought patterns, certain memories, trying to understand why something happened the way it did and kind of like spiraling down that and obsessing about it. But when we get caught in the story too much, it can kind of be like this downward spiral that can be really challenging to get out of. And so certain practices of being able to witness the mind without identifying with it, without getting lost in it, without also pushing it away, not rejecting it, because that kind of somehow empowers it. And there's this really wonderful teacher, Mooji, and his practice is looking inward at the sense of I am, just like the sense of existence itself. And not thinking about it, but where is the I am? Where's the source of the I am? Where is that coming from within us? And it's not the body and it's not the mind. So you can recognize when you're doing this, like when a thought comes up or a sensation comes up, and you can realize that is not I am. That is not I. That is not the I. And then kind of return your focus. So, okay, so if that's not the I, that thought's not the I, where is the I? What is the I? And then I can recognize the experience that I'm having, whether watching a movie or being in nature or thinking about something that's frustrating me or whatever. I can allow myself to witness it, to see it, but without getting lost in it, without getting identified in it. And then in a way, I'm shifting my reality into frames of existence that are more peaceful, more calm, more compassionate, rather than in a state of frustration or blame or fear or confusion. And one of the things that Bashar talks about is when we find ourselves experiencing a negative emotion, that is the sign that we're out of alignment with the truth of who we are. And that's there for a reason. That's not a mistake. That's there to show us that we're holding on to some sort of limiting belief within our subconscious, and so then our job is to kind of, it's that opportunity to now, what is this limiting belief? Bring that up to consciousness, to examine it, to recognize that it is illogical, that it's not aligned with the truth of who we are, so why carry it, and then being able to let it go, and kind of repeating this process of following after the things that interest us, the things that we're passionate about, following those paths or acting on those passions to the best of our ability with no insistence on the outcome. Because it's not about getting something. It's about tuning into that vibration of passion, because that's the signal from our higher mind that is guiding us in a particular direction. So even if you think you're going to get a particular thing out of it and it doesn't work out the way you think, you can still extract a positive experience out of it if you can remain in the positive state of knowing that everything that happens is somehow for my ultimate good. It's somehow teaching me to move along this path in a way that is benefiting me, and every single moment is benefiting me for my highest good, and remaining grounded in that knowledge allows me to then recognize when I am out of alignment with that positive state. And it's not like toxic positivity, pretending that things are good when you're having a negative experience. It's about being able to recognize, okay, this isn't going the way that I had hoped or the way that I wanted it, but then being able to extract a positive understanding or a positive teaching or a positive at least being able to recognize like how to finer tune my ability to move in directions where my authenticity is, my true state of being, my higher self, and being more aligned in that, so that no matter what happens is benefiting me, because I'm allowing myself to use the negative experiences in a positive way, kind of through the repetition of this process. And again, going back to what I said about Muji, that allows me to get out of like the spiral of the downward thought of like, you know, being frustrated or sad or confused about a particular situation. And not that you have to push those emotions away, but that you can kind of step back from them and allow them to rise and fall just by shining the light of your consciousness in awareness that this is, you know, this is not the truth of who I am. This is just a, you know, a temporary, limited experience based on belief systems that are out of alignment. So when I feel tension in my body, I can kind of step back and say, I'm whole in this moment. There's nothing missing. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. I have everything I need. And so I can allow myself to kind of settle into the feeling or the experience without resistance. And the less resistance I have, the less pain I have, the less tension I have, and the more easily I'm able to move through that experience. And then learn something from it, to grow through it, to evolve, to extract a positive way of learning from it. Deepens our ability to trust. You know, at first it's just kind of a practice playing with an idea, but it deepens this ability to trust that all is well, and then to kind of more calmly move through situations, even if they may be kind of objectively not what we prefer. To have less tension or less panic or less attachment. And to flow with kind of the natural creative energy that's moving through the Tao, the Shakti. To be able to look in and see where there is little bits of resistance within me, and to be able to relax into it and to let it pass. And then just to be able to enjoy the place where I am. with the sun and the wind and the birds and the river. I've been meeting people on the trail and stopping and talking, and that's been happening more frequently. Just this kind of ability to sit and connect with people, or not sit, but just stand on the trail. Get to know people that appreciate this place that I love so much. People who live locally to me that, sometimes new people, sometimes people I've seen a lot. There's one woman today that I met on the trail, and we've stopped and we talked to each other in the past before 2 or 3 other times, but she's also connected. She knows my mother, and they used to spend some time together, and so it's interesting to talk to her and share some thoughts of mine, some connections to the things I've been working on and exploring, and then receive some wisdom back from her and connection. She shared that she does this thing with kids where she brings acorns and kind of like gets them thinking about this, where this acorn came from, but also what it can become, and trying to connect to it as a living thing in this moment. And can we communicate with it? Can we experience each other as living beings rather than just, I don't know, just a thing? But just to be able to connect and listen and support each other. And I've been more actively reaching out to people this past week, and at first I did experience some frustration and negative emotions or sadness or feeling alienated because I wasn't connecting with a few people in the way that I wanted to. And then I had a challenging situation in a kind of a mushroom ceremony that I did that felt scary, but it also kind of reinforced this desire to connect with myself and others, and to reach out to the people who are my friends and talk to them about it and share when I'm struggling or going through a challenging experience. But then also kind of through that, and having somebody hold space for me and listen to me and know that they love me and support me, to also be able to reciprocate that. Recognize that we all have our challenges, but in opening up to one another, we can find how we can support one another more effectively, and that's really important. To deepen in our experience of authenticity with ourselves and the world around us, and what does it mean to be in community. That no matter what challenges may be out in the world around us, that we can find ways of connecting with each other and supporting one another and strengthening one another, but it comes through kind of really deepening in our connection to ourselves as well. I think I'll leave it at that for today, so thank you very much. Sending you love. I'm going to plant this acorn somewhere on my property, so We'll have a tree that's been given some love from the point of being an acorn, and through connection to this conversation. Take care.